Hit record as well, you can. Hi, Penny, and welcome to the Enriched Life Experiment. It's so good to have you. And
Mm,
what I'll do is I'll just throw straight to you and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. Tell us where you've been. What do you do? Why are you here?
wow, I feel like that's such a big story. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being on, invited in. Yeah, I am a mom. I've spent quite a few years being a single mom. So I know the ins and outs and challenges and also the joys that can come with all of that. Um, Yeah, I guess as far as like my childhood, um, yeah, there was just a lot of layers of karmic and family trauma. Some that I was born into, even on a soul level. Um, so there was early like birth trauma in utero, religious trauma, like physical trauma, emotional trauma, sexual trauma. So all the traumas kind of like encompassed my childhood.
Mm.
Luckily, I had some pretty nice gene keys. I didn't know that that's what they were at the time, but I really utilized a lot of my energy to like alchemize different things. So while this was going on, I was able to actually be involved in quite a lot of things, like being the president of my student council, starting a Students Against Drunk Driving program in my high school. And so I was doing like these really crazy, cool things, and kind of went on to college and had like a lot of, I don't know, addictions, but all under the guise of fun and exploration. So I met a lot of really interesting people. I explored a lot of things. I also had my first health really big dip. My dad passed away when I was 17. So by the time I was 20, I had my first really massive health issue. Um, and I had already had health issues, surgeries, medications, but this one really looped out and it was for months. So I sought out homeopathy and herbs and yoga and spirituality because I had already been raised in the Western medical. Both my parents worked for the clinics here, different capacities. So it was very Western medicine model. And back then, I'm 55, so it was a lot of talk therapy. So when I got to Madison and had that health crisis, it was the time for me to look at what is really going on. And I would say that that was the spark that really sparked kind of a lifelong journey in spirituality, in physicality, trying to understand like how all of these things work together because I knew they did and I was watching it, how I would ebb and flow with different things. But sometimes not having the language. I mean, honestly, that was one of the great things about meeting you was like you put to language quite a few things that I had seen in patterns. Um, yeah, so I mean, kind of jumping around here.
Do it.
Um,
Jump around. Yeah.
um, yeah, so I was a massage therapist for, oh my gosh, like 25 years plus. And I love that career, but I knew that the last 10 years I was burnt out and there was a missing link between spirituality and physicality and emotional. And so people would come in and they would want to share all these emotions with me, which is no problem for holding space for that. But then I do this physical body work, and then the next week they'd come in with the exact same emotional struggles, the exact same physical body issues. And it just was starting to, for me, I was like, energy going out, energy going out, energy going out. And even though I had enrichment, I had things that were bringing energy in, but people weren't like they weren't getting the message. I felt like what I was doing was like, it was just like putting a Band-Aid on, or I was just like holding a little my finger over a little hole, a little leak, and being like, well, if I take my finger off, it's going to keep leaking. And do I really want to be the person who just keeps people from leaking? No, the answer was no. But
Mm.
it took me quite a few years, and that's part of that merging pattern, I think, is what I understand now. Part of that merging pattern wound was to stay in endurance. Well, I'll just endure in this because maybe people will understand someday. Maybe I won't know how to make money. Maybe, and so I had all these questions and concerns. And finally, the pandemic was really the thing that put it on stop. The pandemic was like I lost my whole entire practice for the second time. This I had lost it
Wow.
before from getting physically sick. I had this medication interaction and I was sick for the better part of a year and I lost my whole practice then
Wow.
too. So it took me two times to understand what spirit was trying to tell me in the direction that I really needed to go. So moving into all these different technologies and different modalities in my own healing journey has like just prompted me to be able to utilize that with my clients. And now I'm seeing the body work shifts. Like
Mm.
I don't do a lot of full massages anymore, but I just do body work very specifically for trauma spots. Um, but I also don't do that just by itself either. So I include all these things and I really get to know my clients and really get in deep with them. So I'm not just saying like, oh, you need this because that's my little repertoire right here. I'm like, oh, I have all these tools. And so let's find out what resonates for you, what works for you, what can we get the most progress for, and where is your capacity? Like, because sometimes, with the sacred rage too, that's another one where, you really need to do a certain amount of work before you're really ready because it's so activating and there's so much charge when you do sacred rage work that if you don't know how to re-embody, if you don't know how to integrate, if you don't know how to ground, and you don't know how to like bring your system back into equilibrium, or at least, a certain degree of it as we work in it, then you could be really left with this like supercharged place and almost take back steps. And I saw that. I saw that happen with other people that I was in a group with, where they couldn't even finish the group. They couldn't even finish the group
Yeah.
like 5 session because they were so activated and charged. Um, so yeah, so that's really like that's what brings me so much joy is being able to be of service and really kind of go in more deeply with people to find those things that really resonate for them and give them that long term. Like, I don't want you to keep coming to me. I don't really want to see the same person longer than a year. I mean, I love people. And so
Yeah.
it's like, I love the money and I love you and you're amazing. But literally in a year, you should be off and running on your own, and have enough tools in your tool chest and self-regulation to be able to be, living your best life
Yeah.
or on the, you know.
Penny, I love everything you said there was so beautiful. I would love to recap. So, come from a long history of learning how to heal. And in that journey, you've discovered some amazing modalities for you. So you can become this a Swiss Army knife, a really versatile um, healer or shaman or someone that can guide someone through their issues to find that holistic healing, and then nurturing them because the merging pattern's really good at nurturing, and then nurture them back into themselves so they can help remember who they are and come here who they really need to be, and show up for themselves and show up for their family and anybody else they need to show up for. But over that 12-month period or those extended periods can really give them um, a holistic experience in discovering who they really are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I personally went through probably on and off almost 20 years of traditional talk therapy on and off. And I literally, I'll say that I say this all the time to people when they ask me. It's like it has its place. So I'm not saying don't do
Totally.
therapy. It has its place, but it's not the whole picture and it's not the end. It's literally not the end. So what I did is I felt like I got on the talk therapy boat and then we were just going around and around the pond. Doo, let's talk about this. Let's talk about my problems. Let's talk about this and this and this and this and talk, 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 talk,
I
talk.
can already
Well,
hear the heaviness and the stuckness in what you're saying. Like, oh, I just go in loops.
yes. And like, when am I going to get off the boat? Because isn't
Mm.
this the point? Like, I came here to get on a boat of healing and then to get off on land and be able to learn how to walk and then choose if I want to go swimming,
Yeah, I
if
love
I
that
want to go
analogy.
canoeing, I
Yeah,
can choose that. Yeah. But that talk therapy boat, and I think some other modalities, I don't want to like, get too much into the negative, but I do in my in my personal experience, I feel like people want, and I've wanted this too, and it's a very addictive way of thinking, is like, I want this, and this is going to be the answer. This is going to
yeah.
save, going to be the only thing. And holistic was the word. Yeah. I mean, that's been my business since I was 21 and I started doing this work as holistic health therapies because
And
it is a holistic process.
it
You have
is.
to address all the things. And that's where sometimes it's like, well, I'm doing this. And it's like, okay, okay, great.
Yeah.
How are these things going in your life?
No, I don't. I
And
don't
then,
want to. I don't want to look at those right now because this thing's
yeah, because I'm doing this thing. You've probably seen that too in your work.
totally. And for my own journey too, where I
Me
think, oh,
too.
this thing, it's helped me. This is the next best thing, whatever it is. Like whether it was landmark or plant medicines or whatever it was. Oh, this is the thing. Everyone needs to do this. Excuse me. And Penny, you're also an incredible artist, and you make some incredible art. Talk to me about the artistic journey for you.
Well, and this is something that I learned from human design too, is that I have this sense of touch as my primary. And so my body is really a vehicle for alchemy. And I've acutely known this, even back in high school. Like I was involved in show choir and vocal jazz and all kinds of art projects and all kinds of like murals and floats, high school type stuff. But I was always the one who was like right in there, right in there. And I think that's like, why I love martial arts and why I love like Aikido is like that physicality, it's like being the airbender or being like it's being able to transmute things through the body. And art is the same way. Like sometimes I just need to release something. I don't even know what it is, there might be some kind of activation. Sometimes I channel things that actually do come from what I consider outside of myself, like not from my mental mind.
Yeah.
There are a lot of patterns and shapes and light frequencies and um yeah, I don't know. I love doing that. Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
how I guess it's just to me it's like how I alchemize energy and emotions that I can talk like the best of them. Trust me. I can sit and talk for like 2 hours straight and not let anyone have a word in. I'm trying
that's
not to do that anymore. But
that's the gift of the merging. Like the merging's got
yeah.
incredible communication gifts. And they're amazing storytellers, like amazing storytellers. But then
Oh
in that,
yeah.
you need to jump in there and say, "Hey, I want to say something too."
Yeah.
And Penny, tell me about justice. The word justice keeps popping up for me in my head. I want to ask you about justice and your relationship with justice.
Yeah.
So, would you be comfortable talking about your relationship with justice?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It's funny, I was just unraveling this with someone the other day. I was talking about how when I was a kid, um, and I date myself here, but in the United States, Saturday morning cartoons was like the thing. So like 6 a.m. in the morning, you got cartoons until noon, 6 hours straight of cartoon land. And you just like grab whatever you need to eat, whatever you need to snuggle. And it's like you get your ass up early to go watch cartoons.
Hmm.
I remember the cartoons that I was into was like this cartoon that didn't wasn't on the air very long, but it was called Isis. And she had really cool powers. she had like water powers and she had like spirit powers where she could connect with like this lightning bolt, which gave her this energy where she could like jump over things or she could like go through walls. She just had like these super cool, but she was
Wow.
always fighting for the underdog. And then like Justice League came much, much later. I was one of those geeky kids who actually read comic books quite a lot. That was like my place to like have another world, really. And like fantasy movies and books were also a big part of my childhood. And I think that I was already doing so much archetypal work, but I didn't know it.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
yeah. And I was the kid who stood up for people. Like, if kids were being bullied. I also went through a phase of being a bully myself, so
Same.
yeah, I had to like kind of embody both to really understand what it means, like what justice means. And it's still I still was like challenged with a lot of other situations in terms of, I mean, moving up into adulthood, with my daughter being raped at 15, an unimaginable thing to go through as a parent. And then also having my own story with that, which was
Mm.
completely different from hers. And so I thought, I've broke the chain. This isn't going to happen. I've married two good men, and and they're not going to groom my daughters. And then it happened in the outside world. And so going through like almost 4 solid years of revenge fantasies, it was very humbling initiation, seeing what my mind and my emotions and the rage and like I really just and I had to like come to grips with this. I finally burned all of those notebooks because I just had to purge it out of my system. But like this boy who did that to my daughter was the same age as my son.
Mm.
So I'm having these horrific things. I mean, things I can't even say out loud that I wanted to do to him. Like really like psychopathic type stuff. And here I am having these fantasies about harming a boy who harmed my daughter, who's the same age as my son.
Mm.
So I'm seeing my son every day.
It's real though, Penny, right? It's real. Like,
So real.
this is
So
a
real.
mother's primal, like, how dare you like touch my daughter? Like
Yeah.
it's built into the genome, right? So I think like
Wow.
and some of the work that we did, are just allowing that, right? Allowing that to exist first and being
Yeah.
loved through that primality of defense and revenge and right, was so important in that transition into gracefully like
Yeah.
choosing to let go of that stuff or purge that stuff, because I think some people jump to try and, oh, I'm not allowed to be this way, so now I have to purge this stuff, but it leaves the loop unfinished, right? So the
Yeah. I
benefit,
agree.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree. And it's also really hard. It's hard for other people to hold space for that kind of rage.
yeah,
It's also really difficult for other people to hold space for just that story, especially if your friends are also parents. That's what I found. It was the loneliest, one of the loneliest journeys I have. Still kind of chokes me up a little bit. It was just so brutally lonely. Just nobody reaching out to me. And I just don't want anyone, if I can be of service in that way, like obviously people are going to go on their alone journeys with it. I'm not out here to save the world. But if I can help some people who have their own story or are going through that, it's a terrible thing to go through alone and
absolutely.
feel like you don't have anybody reflecting that what you're going through is completely normal.
Mm,
Even when I went to therapy, they were trying to get me to resource my anger in a different way. And I was like, you don't get it. You're not living in
mm,
me. Like, tell me how you would feel. What would you do? Stop intellectualizing this, because if this happened to your kid, all your intellect would go right the fuck out the window, just like mine.
absolutely. Absolutely, Penny. That's it. I think that's it, right? Like all these
Yeah.
intellectual cages and boxes that therapists and specialists try and put themselves in, when it comes down to the meat and bone and the wisdom that's in the body and how we've survived. Like I'm hearing like Jinky like 38 and 39 here, like the warrior, where it's like we've gotten to this point of evolution through fighting, through war, through struggle, through survival, tribe versus tribe, do or die. Like it's built into the genome. So to try and deny that and assume that we've somehow escaped the gravity of our body is
Right.
pure naivete. You know, it's and I also hear the innocence in that, as like with all the speed at which we've got through technology and psychological development. But really, we're still this primal being that wants to defend our tribe, especially for a mother wanting to
Yeah.
defend her children, like carrying a child, that bond of a mother to a child. Most men don't understand it. Most of our therapies are designed by men, right? So we don't get the primality.
Yeah.
So like I loved everything you said there, Penny, and your vulnerability in being able just to speak to it and feel it, right? And the
Mhm.
depth of your feeling, Penny, the way I receive you is your ability to hold space is so beyond time because you've
Mhm.
been through that alone journey of going through the most horrible of horribles. And so when someone comes to you, like straight away, that nurture just comes out. Like, you tell me what you've been through, you tell me what's there, and what would you like to do with that? And then let's create something unique for you because no one shoe fits all, right? It really heals your kind of bespoke experience per client, which I think is the way to
Mhm.
go, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
being able to show that person, nurture that person back through all of the shadows of death, the valley of death, wherever do they need to go, right? Coming out the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much shame with these themes that my life has brought. And of course, I'm a 1-3, so I have that 3 line in my subconscious. So there's been a lot of shame loops
Yeah.
to move through. And frankly, like religious abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse. Like wasn't physically abused, but I witnessed it with my mom and my sister.
Mm.
And then having it be by a parent, so incest, like those are really like so much shame loops wrapped up in there. And like a lot of like that is it feels really personal, and on one level it is, but it's so not. And like that is such a gift that I wish I would have had. I can't go backwards, so no regrets, but like if I can pass that on, like start dealing with your shame, start being vulnerable, start owning these places that you feel are unimaginable. Like just own them, be with them, because that actually does cut the shame loops, and the
Mm.
less shame loops you have, the more you can be of service not only to yourself, but to your family, to your community. And, you know, at the beginning of any good journey, you're not necessarily thinking, well, how can I save the world? I mean, I was because I'm a good merger. So I'm always like, I can save you. Not anymore. Not anymore, but I used to be that way. I used to go to the bar and be like that when back in my heavier drinking days. I would go to the bar and like do Reiki on people and
But you get
great
it right. Like if you do it, it's
shit.
just I can help people, right? You see, because emerging, you can see people suffering like at a distance, right? You
Oh,
can feel them. It's like
absolutely.
I can help you. Like I don't want you to be in that suffering. But then for the merging, it's really being able to come back into your core self. Let's go, well,
Yeah.
who was I? And rage is a huge part of that. And being able to speak your wants and your needs, like saying, like John, I want to delay this, or John, can I do this now? Or anyone in your life, I don't want that, but I do want that. Like
Yeah.
that being able to
Yeah.
really powerfully speak to your wants and needs. And I mean, well, originally we were going to postpone this because like your website hasn't isn't finished yet. And I love it when people just show
Patience.
up. Like
Gene Key 60. You brought up justice. I thought you would get a giggle out of it because I was telling you my process. I'm like, yeah, of course. Limitations just swooped right in this morning. And I was like, I don't have my website ready. I don't have this ready. I haven't been posting, blah, blah, blah.
and I love that about you, Penny. You can just show up. Like you just show up And in that, like, because your website's not done, but there's especially in the coaching world and the healing world, the
I
mentorship
know.
world, we get so obsessed with like wanting to make sure everything's perfect when we launch. But there's
Yeah.
something really humbling and gritty and human about just showing up where you're at right now. Like,
Yeah.
especially for a lot of the people that want to transition into like a different style of coaching, they want to try and get all their marketing right. They want to try and get everything right, and they can
Mhm.
get stuck on this wheel of wanting to get it right before they put themselves out there. And I
Yeah.
encourage them, just put yourself out there. Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
more delicious than being around a human that's still messy and like just hasn't got their
Yeah.
shit together at some level, right? But their healing is potent, right?
Yeah.
So when you
I
judge
was just
them,
saying today that my superpower is being messy.
and chaos is beautiful too, Penny, right? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
that because
I mean,
that
a lot of beautiful things come out of those really chaotic and messy places. Yeah.
exactly. And when someone shows up on your door and they are chaotic, or you have space for chaos, like, it just lets their whole body relax. It's
Yeah.
like you probably
Definitely.
haven't, like, when someone starts telling you their story, Penny, you probably haven't heard this before, but XYZ, XYZ, and you like open your heart and like, I've been there and I know what it's like, but tell me more, right? Like, it's such a, they can hear the pin drop in the presence of how beautiful, like, you can hold space when you can be in messiness and show up in chaos, in messiness, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a gift. I mean, I feel like I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have a whole, scoops of people who were that for me.
Mm,
And also, there is parts, like parts of the journey, like I spoke to before, that like I wish I would have had support, that I could have had support. I just didn't know how to resource it, and maybe it wasn't available to me at the time. But also, like the hero's journey, the warrior's journey, also sometimes does require you. So, like maybe 3 years ago, I kind of went into a deeper part of like my awakening, if you will. I don't necessarily like that language, but my deeper awareness of self. And so I really did move a lot of friendships that were not aligned with me and that I was like enduring
yeah, yeah.
them. But they weren't really in alignment and I was feeling drained. And so I moved away. And then there was some friendships that just revealed themselves and just naturally moved away. And
Yeah.
so I found myself, I don't have a huge community, but the people that I do have are really solid, really present, and really here with me. And so I do see the value of this particular journey of alone as being really potent and necessary.
Mm,
Whereas what I went through before, I feel like, it was necessary for what I do now, and I can see that. But I also see that the support for families after they go through that, especially with a minor child, because the state takes over.
right.
It becomes a case that's through the state then. So as parents, you don't have support, you don't have say in anything. In fact, a lot of times there would be court dates and they would notify us that day.
Mm,
So it wasn't like we could take off work or be there and back then there wasn't Zoom like there is for most things now post pandemic. So that's like something that's shifted, but you're really booted out of the whole process. Like it's really the state and lawyers and so it's like one more layer of feeling really powerless.
mm,
And I think just healing from abuse of any kind really it's you just need so much support and different modalities and people on your team who are not just there holding space but also have technologies and are multidimensional and that can really help you alchemize the energies that are moving through your actual physical system.
mm. Yeah, and how you speak about this, Penny, I could really hear in you that you've got the technologies to help even more people now. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're ready to be in. You're ready, like, so ready to be on this next tier of game of helping
Yeah.
people. Like, I can hear it in your voice. So,
Yeah.
and you mentioned
Yeah.
before your line 1-3. So, what are you investigating right now? What are you line oneing right now that's really exciting for you?
Oh my gosh, a couple things. Partially I've been investigating the mother wound. It's a term coined by a woman named Kelly McDaniels, and she wrote a book about mother wound, and it's called mother hunger, actually, is the phrase. And like right when I listened to one of her podcasts, like the first time she said it, there was such a charge in her voice. I was like, holy shit, that's me. Like I have a word for this, not just mother wounds. I've been down that and did archetypal work, but mother hunger. And then she really breaks it apart into like first degree, second degree, third degree, with very distinct things that are involved in each. And as it turns out, I have all three, which totally landed in my whole body was just like, oh, somebody sees me and they
Mm.
hear me, and I have language for this, and I know other women with this. And she also talks about BPD, the diagnosis,
Yep.
borderline personality, and bipolar being overdiagnosed in women in particular when it's really a mother hunger. And so, like, when you get the psychology label of bipolar or BPD, it's kind of a bit of a death sentence because there's
Yes.
really no recovery. It's like you have this, now you're going to have it for the rest of your life. And there are studies that have shown when people get diagnosed with BPD in particular, there's a higher level of suicide rate
Yep.
after they get diagnosed. So really interesting. And then the sacred rage piece comes in because it moves through all three stages.
Mm.
So that really like just landed in a way. Like I don't want to coin her, I don't want to steal her work, but also like I want to utilize the things that she's teaching because just the words mother hunger, it's kind of like Gabor Mate. He has like, I think he calls it hungry ghosts.
Yeah.
Like when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's addict. Every addict, I think, could relate and have a charge in their body, like with that hungry ghost of like just never being full, always like needing more of whatever the drug is. And the mother hunger is that like love, addicted to sex, addicted to like always hungry for this love from your mother, but it never was there. And even when your mom's still alive and you can't hate her, but you can't love her, it's
Mm.
just very like
Ah, Penny.
unraveling,
Uh,
unraveling this.
yeah, Penny, thank you so
Yeah,
much for opening that up because like the that you touched on so much that I want to talk about. I want to say all the things. I want
yeah,
to say all the things. So
yeah.
you touched on stealing other people's work, right? And stealing other people's words. And this notion of um that we're always going to be iterating and standing on the shoulders of giants that have come previous. Like for me, like Gene Keys and human design and the five personality patterns work, like from Reich to Stephen Kessler and then with Women Who Run with the Wolves, Clarissa and her term like instinct injury and the things that I take from them and refer back to them. But keep on iterating, right? Like this is a gene key as well. I can't remember which gene key it is, but one about iteration and that we're always
Yeah,
iterating. Can we give evolution of can we give permission that yes, what came before is beautiful and there's still more that we can build upon it. And
yeah,
with the mother hunger piece and the addiction and the hungry ghost, that's a merging pattern piece. And because it's pre-verbal, like mainstream like talk therapy is not going to get to the root of it. I mean, Gabor Mate talk about it goes into plant medicines and his journey in plant medicines. And this mother hunger thing, I'm not familiar with when you've mentioned mother hunger to me before, but when you
mhm,
said it, like I can just hear that umbilical connection to the mother and not having that love, an overflowing mother to fill you up
mhm.
energetically. So you need to like you're talking to mom, like mom, where are you? Mom, like waiting for I can feel my neck and my jaw muscles here. I'm getting quite tight, like being able to
Yeah,
like the masseter muscles, like not being able to suck on a
yeah,
breast properly. Like
yeah,
and that's merging patterns. So
yeah,
I love what you're opening up here, Penny, and just how important your investigating is to
yeah,
weave in other things to to
yeah,
to make a tapestry that's fitting for somebody else in their healing journey and your own healing journey, right? Oh, I loved hearing that, Penny. What else have you learned
well,
with the
I
mother hunger?
did buy the five pattern. I bought that book and I also bought the bioenergetics. I forget what his name is. It's like a
Devaraj.
cover up. There you go. Yeah, and so I have been working in that merging pattern, and, now it's like it's so interesting. Now it's like I hear it too, like, I hear the merging pattern, I feel it in my jaw too, and even the video you just posted in our group, I can't remember his name, it was a YouTube, and he broke down the
Oh,
belt.
Elliot.
Oh
Yeah,
my god. He is a stitch in and of itself, but, like,
totally.
breaking down those bands, I noticed all of that in my massage career. I just didn't have the language, so that was so brilliant, so thank you for that, for dropping that in, because I was just like, "Oh my god, I could leave John, like, a half-hour message about all the stuff that I'm, like, dialing in right now that fits in with the mother hunger, that fits in with the merging pattern and the enduring pattern, because I think those are I think I went through all the patterns. I think
Yeah,
you've
we do. We do.
some of them, but I identify, I think, more with the merging and probably the enduring, less enduring now. And probably like rigid and psychopathic like when I was younger, because I just
Yeah.
didn't fucking care about anybody else but myself. I honestly went through a period I didn't even think I was gonna live past 30.
Yeah. Wow, Penny.
Like my philosophy was, fuck it, if it feels good, do it. But then it's weird because I look back and I'm like, you know what? I never was tempted by heroin or meth or, so it's like I always, like, I look back and I'm like, yeah, I really was protected. I
Yeah.
had kind of a connection, even in my worst times when I didn't feel like I was connected to anything. I was still connected because there were blocks in what I was how far I was willing to go. I would dance in the darkness, but only so far.
Yeah, thank you, Penny. And I see that a lot of
Yeah.
people that are in my field in particular, they're all protected by something. There's like this
Mhm.
light over their life. They're here for something, or they're a connector or a pillar or something in their community and their healing space. And also, thank you for mentioning my group too, and me sharing Elliot's video. Because for me, like there's been a time in my coaching career, my mentoring career, where I wouldn't want to share somebody else's work because I didn't want them to go and work with them. But
Yeah.
now I'm like, nah, get the transformation. This guy can break it down so much better than I could. And I don't want to spend time making a video on it. Like, here, I
Yeah.
found a video. This is perfect. It
Yeah.
slots right in. Use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I used to be that way too. I didn't want to share information. I was kind of a little bit of a gatekeeper, you
Same.
know. Like, it makes me more magical. But then, like, I had the same realization. I was like, "No, I'm actually here to spread information." And you're right, for me too. I don't wanna make videos about all this stuff, even I might have the knowledge and I might have the capabilities, but I just don't want to. It's not my thing. Somebody else already did it, and they did it beautifully.
Totally.
So, I don't need to trump on my own ego and be like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna make a video of this too." But I can also see the dance of the 1-3 of, like, that, like, carrying the both of those things and not shying away from, like, sharing everybody else's knowledge, but not sharing my own.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
thank you,
I can
Penny.
I can see that that's something that, is kind of in here that I'm constantly trying to find that justice within myself, that
Yeah.
ability to balance and carry those 2 energies. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I can really feel that. Like, because I know because I'm 5'1", so my temptation is to share what I know.
Yeah.
And then for the 1-3, like being, oh, well, do I share this? Is mine important too? Because that's why I think, like, that's why I wanted you on here, right? Is to build that voice, to share your own wisdom, to share what
Yeah.
you've cultivated. Because that first line is so important for all the other lines to build upon. When a first
Yeah.
line doesn't share their wisdom, like the world misses out. The world really misses out on all the investigating they've done because they're built for investigation to find the little nuggets and the gems and the gold veins and the opals and the diamonds within bodies of work and then bring them to the surface and go, hey, I found this and this actually ties in with this and 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 just
Yeah.
bring that
Yeah.
holistic healing into the world. So I'm so keen to see where I'm getting goosebumps right now. I'm so keen to see where you go next. Like, so
Mhm.
where are you going next, Penny? Like, what's the next thing for you?
Hmm. Good question. Well, I did want to make one comment about a
Please.
realization that I had just over this last maybe 6-ish months is I have been living thinking that everyone has the same drive for knowledge,
Mm.
not realizing I am wired up really differently, and it's okay and it's good. And I think I've been taking in a lot of loops about, like, you think too much. Why are you so interested in all of these things? You go down a lot of rabbit holes. And so I'm like, I'm looking at them going, well, why aren't you thinking? And why aren't you, why aren't you going down that rabbit hole? Like,
Right?
kind of this thing that's like up in the head, and just fully acknowledging and embodying my own, like, yeah, I really do seek this out and it's very different, and it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. And I do have things to share, and I don't have to know everything about everything, that I can just take the nugget and trust that I did the research and just give you the nugget.
Oh,
To be honest, like, working with you and following you has given me a lot of inspiration in that way and understanding, because you embody that really beautifully.
thank you,
That
Penny. Received.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'll
yeah,
take that in. That gift. That I can feel
yeah,
that gift is going all through my cells right now.
yeah, yeah. And I kind of thought you were a one line, but I wasn't sure. So that's great that you just shared that. I'm like, oh, now I see it. You got the 5 line leadership and projection, and that makes sense with all the different things you've shared with merging and your
Yeah,
pattern that you went through. Yeah, yeah,
totally. Then I've got all the patterns as well. Like so, it's so delicious, Penny. Where I think we're going in the healing arts, like
yeah,
so great. And then Penny, where are you going next? Like, thank you for sharing that nugget
yeah.
that you have. Where are you going next?
Where am I going next? Well, eventually my website will be up and running. Really, really, I'm building up my, like, confidence to just to share more of my wisdom, to share more of my personal experiences. I mean, I can get very comfortable with being a hermit, and I'm not supposed to be a hermit.
Mm.
And it's okay. It's okay. I'm kind of being a little bit funny here.
Yeah, no, I hear it.
Yeah,
Mm.
because I do need time with, like, just my own trauma responses, like, autoimmune things that I've been carrying, that I've been healing, and that have been, I'm at a point now where I really, like, I don't take any medications. I have an asthma inhaler I still use. But, like, I don't take medicine for joint pain. I take CBD, I do icing, I do a lot of things. I do a lot of energy work, a lot of somatic work. So I'm really proud about that, but I also, like, it's sometimes I just get shy about sharing. Like, I'm just, like, over here being comfortable with my own healing journey.
I
And then
love
I'm like,
that.
oh yeah, I really do want to help people, and I really do want to be of service, and no one can find me. No one knows the beacon of light I carry if I'm not sharing it,
Beautiful.
you know?
So this is me putting a spotlight on your beacon of light, saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, there's Penny here." And where are you geographically located?
I'm in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Yeah,
In
cool.
the United States, yeah, in the heart of the Midwest, very conservative. So
Mm.
I'm kind of plunked in a place where it's a part of the initiation. I know that. I'm kind of plunked in this environment where people need the things that I do, and I'm really okay with, like, sharing that knowledge and teaching other people and really getting other people involved. So in a network, but it's also like working within the context of a small town that's still conservative, that's, so
And
limitations just
limitations. You also need diplomacy in there too.
yeah, yeah.
Mm. And so, do you work like one-on-one in person, online? Like, what's your methods of delivery?
I do both. I mean, I find the somatic work much, much more potent for me and for my client if it's in person.
Totally.
But I do a lot of clients online right now, just because honestly, a lot of my clients are from Europe,
Yeah, right.
like right now. Yeah. Like I have probably 5 or 6 of my clients are all from Europe. I don't know why that is. They just seem like really a lot more open to like the multidimensionality of technology and like the
Mm.
different techniques. Whereas people here still seem like they're still waking up. And I'm sure there are pockets, and I'm
Yeah,
sure that
yeah,
they're,
yeah.
I'll find them or I'll draw them to me.
Yeah,
Because I know that,
I find
yeah,
Colorado in the States seems to be a little bit more. There's something
yeah,
about Colorado.
I've
Um,
heard that. Yep.
yeah, energetically, there's something there. And then Penny
Hmm.
said, "How do people reach out to you? I mean, I know your website's over there under construction doing its thing, but how can people reach out to you now, like today, like whether it's a
Uh,
conversation
yeah,
working?
Facebook, probably Messenger. Yeah, are probably my two places right now. I mean, I have an Instagram account, and so but I don't check messages there
Mm.
super regularly. So I would say Facebook, yeah, WhatsApp.
And what's your handle on Facebook? What's your name on Facebook so they can find you?
I think right now it's just under Penny Libel, and it might change to Octavia Willow, but I think right now it's just under Penny Libel.
Yeah, great. So it's PENNYLEIBEL.
Yep.
LEIBEL. Fantastic. Awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to
Yeah, isn't
share,
that
Penny?
funny that my life's work key is justice, and then
And
my
Libel.
last Bible? I know.
I love it.
It's like the more I go down in the gene keys and human design, I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me.
You
You
can't
got to
make
be
this
kidding.
stuff up, can you, Penny? You just can't. It's
No,
just,
you can't. You can't.
and
Yeah.
is there
Yeah.
anything else that you'd like to share before we start wrapping this up?
Hmm. I won't go too thick into it just because it really veers in a whole different thing, but I think it's pretty cool. So I've always, like, as far as justice, part of that whole morphing through my life with comic books and fantasy, I also really could identify my whole life with the story of King Arthur
Wow.
and Camelot and the Knights of the Round Table. And I always was super intrigued by the vision of that. I was aware that women weren't necessarily revered in a place, but I also really like the unity consciousness and the coming together and the working for a common cause and having guardians that actually look out for the people and make sure that the people, are doing well and thriving and prospering. And I've always loved the story of Joan of Arc from my religious and Christian upbringing. I always loved her story too. And again, this sword of truth. And Wonder Woman was another one. And she had the lasso of truth. I don't know if you remember
I
that, but
do.
she had this lasso, yeah, and she'd like circle it around people and they'd have to speak their truth. And yeah, so I think like truth and justice sort of come in. So fast forward, diving into my gene keys over the last couple years. Um, when Robert Kennedy Jr. announced that he was going to be running for president here in the United States under the Independent Party ticket, I was like, oh, because I had followed him as a lawyer. He's done a lot of environmental work. And he's also taken on big companies like Monsanto's and chemicals in your food and different things, medical, the onset of like more autism and ADHD and wanting to know if there's a chemical component in it.
Mm,
Um, which I think there is. I don't think that it's all just trauma related like Gabor
correct.
Mate
Yeah.
does. I do think there are environmental factors. So anyway, I already thought he was kind of a justice warrior. And so I looked at his keys. We have the same keys.
Wow.
60, 56, and then the 3 and the 40, is it 47? That's like the programmer. No, maybe it's not 47. I forget now. But we have the same keys, and anyway, just the four
Yep.
activation sequence. The rest are different. And we have a couple similar things. But just like going into that, and I was like, wow, how inspiring
Mm,
to actually have someone that represents sort of the idea. And I know the Kennedys have this Camelot, whatever,
yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But I honestly think he is here to break his family karma.
Mm.
and he's here to be the rise of the like, he's not really an underdog, he is in this race, he's not necessarily in his life, like, he's done so many things. Anyway, that's another rabbit hole that I've been going down as far as, like, justice, and I found somebody who inspires me as a leader because 'cause that's been something that I think's been hard
Yeah.
for as a parent, and also seeing young people as they're not modern day heroes, or they're not being described or shared with us. And I do think that we're moving away from the age of the guru, where we put people on a pedestal for
Yes.
certain things, but also we still need people to inspire us and to hold the torch and light the way. And like a walking hero, like, here we are, here it
Yes.
is. I can meet this person, I can emulate myself, and we're not seeing that on the stage in other areas. I won't get into too much of politics, but
That's perfect. I love Penny. That was
yeah.
so perfect. Like you just you I can't. There's just no words. You can't. Just it was perfect weaving. It was perfect. Anything else you'd like to share before we go?
Mm, yeah, just thank you so much for inviting me on. I feel like this was really something that like I appreciate the soul connection of you nudging me in the nicest and most loving way to come out and showcase myself. And yeah, and again, like, I really, it was funny because when you texted me, like, "So is it a yes or no?" And I'm like, "Oh, you just bounced that ball right back in my court, didn't you? Okay, I see what you're doing." Yeah, so thank you. Anyway, this is really beautiful
Mm.
and fun. It's always a pleasure to communicate with you, and thank you for the gentle nudge to get my 3 line in balance with my 1 line.
My pleasure, Penny. My pleasure. So everyone, reach out to Penny if it feels aligned for you. Go follow her, seek her out. She's got tons of wisdom. Pull her out of her hermit with questions. I'm sure she'd love to tell you a story or give you some wisdom or point in the right direction. And thank you all for listening. And if it's spoken to you, then you share it with the other people in your life that you feel like it needs to be shared with. I'm going to share it in my groups and get it up on YouTube as soon as I can. This is great. This is beautiful, delicious content here, Penny. It's from the heart. Like, it's honest. It's authentic. It builds trust with people because there's so much humanity in it. So deeply appreciate. I'm going to hit the stop button, and then we can wrap up off camera.
Yeah.